What's up, fellow Shadow Priests? Today we're talking about my macros and my key bindings, and I think we're going to just start off right away jumping into the macros. Key bindings are really player specific, but I will have some tips and some explanations for my binds for anyone that's curious after the macro portion. So first off, basic macros, you want Focus Psychic Horror is your CC, and Focus Silence. And I would just keep these on a bind that's comfy. Mine are pretty close to each other. I have Shift X is my Focus Stun, and Shift F is my Focus Silence. So at any time, I can kind of press them back to back and it feels really clean. You're always going to be CCing the healer while your partner stuns the DPS. Unless your partner doesn't have a stun, then sometimes you have to stun the DPS. But for the most part, we're going to be using these macros almost every 45 seconds when our partners have damage and when we have damage. Now, what's some other good macros? Life Grip. So we want to have our healer and our DPS in two separate life grip macros, and the reason why this is important is because you need to life grip at a moment's notice occasionally to save someone from dying, or to stop a CC, or to even set up a CC. Maybe sometimes I grip my healer towards the other healer when there's no interrupts so we can get a full Hex or Repentance, and that can be really, really useful. But I wouldn't have like a lot of success doing some of the life grips that I do, like such as gripping Smoke Bomb, or I don't know, gripping like CCs on a moment's notice. Someone's like trying to DB ring your healer, you can grip them out of it. I wouldn't want to like target them and then press a separate bind. It feels kind of slow and clunky. So I just have these set, and I have two different binds, one for my healer and one for my DPS. So I always know which one to press in a given situation. Having party 1 and 2 kind of fucks me up with my raid frames, and I don't actually know, which button I'm going to press sometimes. So that kind of sketches me out. I have these bound to my mouse as well, which we can cover later in the video when I get to my keybinds. For other macros, one that is really actually, I think, rarely used but can be really good when you do use it is to have a macro to cancel your dispersion. I'm trying to find where it is. Here it is. I keybind my Shackle Undead to cancel my disperse, because you rarely press Shackle Undead, and it just happens to be a similar bind, my disperse. Like my disperse is G and my shift G is Shackle Undead. So if I ever need to like disperse and cancel it instantly to get out of it for any reason, sometimes to stop a CC or to get a CC or to, I don't know, just cancel it and just use it as a freedom, it's really good to have that. Sometimes you might need to cancel disperse to, press life swap or something really random like that. So it's good to have that bound. You don't have to click it off and make it feel clunky. I figured I'd just throw this in the video because this happened literally 30 minutes ago. We're streaming, doing some 2s. I am in dispersion. I cancel aura dispersion and I meld the guy's fear because he wants to fear me out of my disperse. This is going to enable us to set up the kill here, get a nice silence my bomb on the healer, and just win the game. If I didn't meld the fear, I wouldn't have done any damage during that setup, and possibly would have lost the game. So it definitely has utility. It's just you're not going to press it too often. Click Totem Frame 1 right button. This will cancel already a Shadow Fiend. I only use this because I played with a rogue, and if we were bursting a target, I would Shadow Fiend on them, and then we would maybe have to blind them moments later, and you have to remove Shadow Fiend, otherwise it's going to break CC. It shouldn't break Polymorph because it'll run away, but for some reason on blind it doesn't do that. Moving through the list, you can also play an @cursor Shadow Crash, but I kind of stopped using this because there's times like where a healer is in CC. Let's say the healer is this rock right here, and there's their DPS, and if I @cursor it, I'm sometimes going to hit the healer. But if you can control where your Shadow Crash goes better, I find that's been a little helpful for me, so I'm not using that. Other macros, this one's pretty cool. It just uses Void Torrent, Damnation, or Mindbender based on your talent tree. We'll put all these in the description as well. I have a stop casting macro for my Shadow Meld, so if I'm like casting a heal and I need to meld, I can instantly, Shadow Meld and not have to stop moving and fake cast. Some other good macros, Focus Purge. You need to purge the focus target a lot. Pallies have Divine Favor. Sometimes you need to purge Innervate, stuff like that. It's good to be able to purge without changing your target. And speaking of targeting, we could probably start hopping into the keybinds now. I think that's pretty much it. For the macros, I have macros to Mind Control Arena 1, 2, and 3. And I also have a macro to Focus Death, but I don't really use it as Shadow too much. Void Jizz, I use my on-use trinket and a Void Form when I'm playing on-use, but I'm not playing one right now, so it doesn't really matter. Going into more keybinds, used to have to make a macro to target Arena 1, 2, 3 and Focus 1, 2, 3. but I have these all bound to my mouse. So I could turn my camera on to make this a little bit easier. Focus Arena 1, 2, 3 is Control, Q, W, and E. That just feels nice to me because the arena starts and I instantly put the person I want on focus. They're all right next to each other. I can swap between them during the game if I need. So let's turn my camera on and I'll talk about my mouse a little bit. Is this working? Hello, there we go. Okay, so this is a Logitech G600. It's a pretty affordable gaming mouse. I think I got it for like maybe 40 or 50 bucks on Amazon. Very similar to the Razer Naga. It's a 12-button mouse, and I'm going to use these bottom, sorry, it's hard to hold in. So I'm going to use these bottom 3 to target Arena 1, 2, 3. This middle row will be target party 1, 2, and then the furthest one will be self, which is like right here. And I do this all with my thumb, you know, I'm just kind of holding my mouse like this and pressing with my thumb. This way you can press abilities on your keyboard and your mouse at the same time. So if you need to like quickly change targets to silence, you can do that. And if I hold down shift, it's going to use my Arena 1, 2, 3 macros. So if I shift target Arena 1, 2, 3, it'll MC rather than target, so I don't change my target and I can still quickly get the cast off. If I hold down shift on the target party 1, 2, it'll do a life grip instead. I also have control bound for shield, but I rarely use that. Oftentimes I'm just going to target my party and then start healing with shadow bend or shield when the time isn't necessary. It is more important to have that life grip bind than like shadow mend, I believe. So that goes, pretty much covers my mouse, I think. I'm not sure if everyone is interested in all my other binds. A lot of them are hidden, so we can open up Bartender and try to dive into them. My basic DPS rotation, I have Mind Flay keybound to 1. My Psychic Core is actually keybound to 2, which is just kind of weird, but that's the way I had it a long time ago, and it feels right to do that. Oftentimes I'm not using my stun unless it's a focus target, so I wouldn't ideally put a longer cooldown on a button that's really easy to press like 2. I would just probably kind of do like filler spells like Mind Flay, VT. My Shadow Word Pain is Shift 3 and my VT is 3, so they're just kind of similar keybinds, easy to get off. I have 5 keybound to Damnation. That's just like my basic DPS rotation. My 4 is Mind Blast, and my Shift 4 is going to be my Void Form or my Void Bolt. Shift 1 I have bound to Thought Steal. Shift 2 is my DP, so my dots are all 3, Shift 3, and Shift 2. Wait, no, sorry. Shift 3, 3, and Shift 2. Yeah, okay. That sounds right. I don't use Shift 5. It's also bound to Damnation. What else? Q is my Mass Dispel. You can also, fun fact, press Alt and hold Q, and it'll Mass Dispel on you. Like you see no radius, right? There's a little lag between like clicking the thing. So if you press Alt Q, it'll instantly MD on top of you. Oh, I just got in combat and I lost my things. BT. Let's go back into it. I'm going to use E for Mind Games. That was my Obsidian Claw keybind last season, and it just feels good to have your, your major burst cooldown on something that's easy to press. R is Shadow Word Death. We use that to avoid CC. Shift R is my Trinket. Shift E is my Shadow Meld. Those are all kind of close to each other. I use Shift W for Door of Shadows. My thought process there is I use W to move a lot, and if I want to hold down Shift and use W, I'll have more mobility. I use it as like my sprint on other classes too. Control R is my Shadow Fiend. It's a 3-minute cooldown, so that bind doesn't need to be really accessible. You could just kind of press it once every 3 minutes and get on with your day. I have V for Shadow Crash, kind of use that off cooldown. C is my Silence. Z is my Void Shift. And sometimes I do Z for like Party 1 Void Shift or Healer Void Shift, and then Shift Z for DPS, but I haven't really been doing that too much this season. I've just been targeting and pressing Swap since I don't play Swap too often. My F is my Purge. F feels like a really fun key for me to spam. It's my interrupt on a lot of classes, and I'm just going to be purging a whole lot, so make sure your Purge bind isn't like Shift W or something. If I press Shift Z, that's my Mind Seer. I would really like to export my keybinds, but since I bartender, I don't know if that's possible. T is my Fear. Shift T is Shadow Mend. That's my heal on every class. So I'm just trying to make it consistent. If you're alting a Shadow Priest, whatever your like Healing Surge keybind is, or your Regrowth on your Boomkin, just make that your Shadow Mend so you can get familiar with that. I have Levitate bound. It's good to use it to keep in combat. If your healer gets in combat against Rogue Mage, you can spam Levitate for what I think is no mana cost, and you stay in combat. That's really important. I have G as Dispersion, and Shift G is my cancel Dispersion, like I said before, and then it also Shackle Undead. Use that against DKs to bait interrupts and even hunters with their undead pet. Mind Soothe, you really don't use in PvP. Mind Control, I already told you I have Mind Control Arena 1, 2, 3, Shift bound on my mouse. And then I have it bound to Shift Q, I think, because it's like a utility spell. MD is Q, Shift Q is MC. Desperate Prayer is my Control 1. It's also macroed to BM. Shield is S. I'm going to press that quite a bit when I'm getting trained, and I don't think I can Shadow Mend. Fortitude is F1, just to have a buff. I don't really press it too much during the game. If I notice that I don't have any buffs and I'm behind the pillar, I'll rebuff. Shift C is my Vampiric Embrace. That's going to be comboed with my Void Form a lot to keep heals up. So Void Form, Vampiric Embrace will keep you alive in 2s for a really long time. I think we pretty much covered everything. Oh, Fade is my X. You want that on a quick, comfy bind so you can fade and react to damage. Shadow Form, I've used a little tilde. But once you hop in Shadow Form, you never leave it, so you can put it to something weird. You should just be in Shadow Form the whole game and never leave. Don't do that at all. I don't have Res Bound. I could make some clutch plays. Oh, PI is Shift S. So Shift S is like my burst on a lot of other classes, so I use it for PI. And if you're playing the Twins Priestess macro or Twins Priestess Legendary, which I have been running quite a bit against non-purge teams, you can make a macro to PI your teammate, and that way you won't forget to PI them. That's pretty much it for my macros, though. Nothing is too intense. Some of these macros I made that I don't even use, like I said, the Eckerser Shadow Crush. I've got some J-Morph macros. Yeah, for the most part, you just want those Life Grip, Focus Silence, Focus Stun. Sometimes it's good to cancel your Disperse. Other than that, you guys should be chilling. Let me know if you have any questions. If anyone knows how to export my key bindings on Bartender, I'm happy to do that as well. So thanks for watching. For anyone that wanted to know my keybinds and macros, hope that helps.